nothing like a nice soft car to break your fall. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. As part of my Fast and Furious franchise review series, today I'm going to be talking about the 2013 action sequel, Fast and Furious 6. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all that extra content. Fast and Furious 6 stars Vin Diesel, Paul Walker, and Dwayne Johnson, and was directed by Justin Lin. It tells the story of Dom, Brian, and the rest of the family as they're offered a deal to hunt down a mercenary in exchange for amnesty and the chance to make their family whole again. The Fast and Furious franchise has evolved quite a bit over its multiple-decade run. The early years saw some experimentation, but certainly by the time Fast and Furious 6 came out, this franchise knew exactly what it was, and so did audiences. It had become a character-driven, over-the-top action franchise, one with strong family themes and irrelevant laws of physics, and one with an obvious goal of one-upping itself with each installment. So after the massive and entertaining Fast 5, this sequel had a lot to live up to and attempt to surpass. But against all odds, and once again, all laws of physics, this film managed to go even bigger than its predecessor. This, of course, has both its positives and negatives, so I want to talk about the plot first. Of the modern era Fast and Furious movies, basically Fast 5 onward, this one definitely has the weakest plot. It's enjoyable and very entertaining, but it's excessively formulaic, even for a Fast and Furious movie. It's been a while since we could consider Fast and Furious to be reasonable on the whole, but up until this film, the plots were still kinda reasonable, if you could look past the action. Really, we just had a bunch of movies about criminals who were really good at driving and used that skill to commit more crimes and protect each other. Their DVD player stealing days are long gone, so we haven't been able to consider our group small-time criminals for quite a while, but there's a definite shift in this film. They've been on the run for basically the entire franchise up to this point, and while they're still repeatedly called criminals here, they're definitely not treated like criminals. The recruitment aspect is a little unbelievable, but I think what really stretches the limits of our suspension of disbelief with this plot is that our group suddenly becomes this efficient black ops team out of nowhere, despite the fact that they've only worked one job together as a big group, a year ago. Don't get me wrong, it's fun and very entertaining, but it's a big jump that put these characters in a very different position moving forward in the franchise. The other aspect of this plot that needs mentioning is the return of Letty. So this is something that wasn't really a surprise, since it was hinted at during the mid-credit scene of Fast 5 and included in all of the Fast and Furious 6 trailers. I've always liked Letty, so it was nice to have her back, and her return was also integral to the story and plot. But much like her departure in Fast and Furious, her return is very clunky and convoluted. They do what they can to explain away her absence for the last movie and a half, but it's all overly convenient. Or inconvenient, as the case may be. That being said, it does work for the most part, and is definitely a better plot catalyst than her departure in the fourth movie was. Speaking of plot catalysts, this brings us back to the recurring main theme of the franchise: family. This has been important since the first movie, but really started to ramp up in the fourth film before coming to a head in Fast 5 by bringing main characters from all the previous movies together for the first time. That fifth movie established the extended family, but this movie showcases the bonds of that family. We started off this movie with our group separated, living rich and free lives. But the bonds between these people are so strong that a single phone call for help is enough to get them all to risk everything. Some of these people knew Letty, but it's important to note that some of them, Tej, Roman, Giselle, never even met her. Yet they still come, cause Dom's their family, and this means everything to him. This theme of family and loyalty runs very deep in Fast and Furious 6. It's obviously the thing that sets up the premise, but it's also at the core of the film's central conflict. Dom and the group view it as one of their biggest assets, while the villain, Owen Shaw, sees this loyalty as a weakness that can be exploited. Speaking of Shaw and weaknesses, I think his character is one of the weaker parts of this movie. He's definitely got some interesting moments, acting like an evil Bruce Wayne, complete with knockoff Batmobiles, but beyond some of his actions, he's not a very interesting character, and we never dive deeper than knowing that precision is a big deal for him. Underdeveloped villains aren't exactly new for the franchise, but with his big over-the-top scheme, he comes off feeling more like a comic book supervillain than a Fast and Furious antagonist. So if Shaw is a supervillain, that would make Dom and the rest of the group superheroes. Sounds ridiculous and like the start of some joke, but honestly, it's not too far off base. The action in this franchise has been steadily ramping up since the fourth film, and although Fast 5 took the ridiculousness of the action sequences up several notches from its predecessors, it still felt semi-grounded in a, hey, it's Fast and Furious kind of way. Fast and Furious 6 makes no attempts at such grounded reality, leaping from ridiculous to utterly absurd, and giving our core group near superhuman abilities. So yeah, these guys are pretty much superheroes now. Absurd or not, the action here is undeniably entertaining. I personally find the stunts in Fast 5 a bit more fun, but this movie's got some great sequences, which all seem to revolve around a car chase of some sort. We've got cars chasing cars, cars chasing tanks, cars chasing cargo planes, shootouts, leaping headbutts, people flying through the air to catch other people only to have their fall broken by a windshield. It's all ridiculous, and these people come away from most of this stuff without a scratch, which still makes me think that a big departure we see towards the end wasn't actually a departure at all. Really, two departures if we're counting the mid-credits scene. This franchise finally said goodbye to whatever action reality it had been clinging to. With this increase in absurdity, these later Fast and Furious films always leave me with some burning questions, and the one that always comes to mind by the end of this movie is how long is that damn runway? Turns out, I wasn't the only one who was curious about this, and people have done the math on it. 26 miles. That runway was 26 miles long. That right there might just be the most unrealistic thing in the whole movie. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number one is the action. I warned you guys in the last review that the action was probably going to make it into the pro column for every one of these movies moving forward, so I'm sure this comes as no surprise. It's as ridiculous as ever. Actually, maybe even more ridiculous than usual, because they don't even try to make the stunts seem realistic anymore. Everything is just bigger and more absurd. There are way more explosions, people are constantly flying through the air, most of the time in slow motion, but it works, because this is what the franchise is. It's absurd, over-the-top fun. The second pro is the family theme. I gotta say, as fun as the action is, the whole family thing is probably the most satisfying aspect of this franchise. And I realize that probably sounds weird to people who haven't seen the movies, or maybe have only watched a handful of them. I mean, it is a big, dumb action blockbuster franchise, so you probably wouldn't expect the characters to be that important. And if you were to watch only one of these movies, they probably wouldn't seem that important. But there's something about the journey that these characters go on over the course of the franchise. We watch them grow up and change, and see the different aspects of their relationships over literally decades. So seeing the strength of these bonds come into play with the actual story is really satisfying. On the con side, the biggest issue is the plot. Like I said before, it's fun. It's a very entertaining plot, but it's also a very formulaic one that takes some things beyond our suspension of disbelief. I realize that this franchise is not based on a true story, and that very little of what's occurred over the past few movies could even come close to being defined as believable in any normal real-life context. But this movie manages to push that unbelievability even further by sort of breaking the established rules of the world with regard to criminals. And of course, we've got the whole Letty thing, that, while important, feels a bit clunky and hastily thrown together. Tropes and all. The second con is kind of an offshoot of the first, and is Owen Shaw. Just like with the plot, I think he's entertaining. I don't hate him or anything, but he feels almost out of place in a Fast and Furious movie. Or at least felt that way at the time of release, since the subsequent movies have leaned even further into the secret agent superhero-ish thing. But Shaw was unlike any previous franchise villain. He wasn't a racing foe, or a cartel leader, or a corrupt businessman. He's a mercenary stealing high-tech equipment to take down governments. He's got this whole team, and all these gadgets, and is basically a supervillain. And it all just changed the trajectory of the franchise. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Fast and Furious 6 or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Fast and Furious 6 3 out of 5 paws. It might have some iffy writing and represents a shift for the franchise, but this movie's got some entertainingly ridiculous action set pieces and is also huge for the future of the family at its center. I would recommend Fast and Furious 6 to people who are already fans of the Fast and Furious franchise. It's got some big, ridiculous moments that'll be enjoyable to any fan of action movies, but it's a story that's fairly dependent on knowledge of the previous few films and works best if you have an existing investment in these characters and the 1327 family. That's not to say it isn't an enjoyable action movie, it's just not an ideal place for a franchise newcomer to start. If you liked Fast and Furious 6, I would recommend Fast and Furious, the 4th film in the franchise. Not only is this the film that reestablishes the family after a few almost spin-off sequels, but it's also extremely relevant plot-wise to this film, because it's the movie in which Letty temporarily departs. If you liked the family ensemble dynamic here and want some more of the group working together, you should check out Fast 5. That's the first film where we get a big team-up of the characters, and it's also got a really interesting and fun story. And if Letty's return and the mid-credits scene left you wanting to know more, you've gotta watch Furious 7. This continues the storyline established in the 6th movie, and also finally officially brings Tokyo Drift into the main timeline of the franchise. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Fast and Furious 6? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite movie that features a character with amnesia? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.